for your offerings of bulls and goats. So now offer me instead your thanksgiving, and keep the vows that you've made with me. The vows that you've made with me. But to the wicked I will speak. How dare you declare my statutes and take my covenants upon your filthy lips, your filthy lips. The one who offers thanksgiving as his sacrifice will honor me, and the one that prepares his way aright, I'll show the salvation of Elohim. In the day of trouble, and I will deliver you.
And you will honor me.
In the day of trouble, I will deliver you.
And you will honor me.
In the day of trouble, I will deliver you. In the day of trouble, I will deliver you. And I will deliver you. And I will deliver you.
Elohim spoke and made earth. His glory continues to go forth. Give not Shem out to the wickedness, lest Adonai turn his ear in your distress. Gather the saints in his fortress. Mighty ones sound the trumpet. A fire shall devour before them. Among the cherubim and the seraphim, perfection and beauty. Out of Mount Zion, out of Zion, yeah.
Sing praises to Adonai, who lives in Zion. I will be glad and exult in you. Sing praise to your name, Elyon.
May he answer you in distress. May the name of God Jacob protect. May he send you help from the sanctuary as the Lord you from Zion.
Hello, how are you? Man, I am excited to be here tonight. I'm excited because of the growth that we're experiencing and what we're doing up here. I'm very excited. We are going to be doing week 37 on tonight's devotional. But to begin with, let me, in case you're new here, I just want to let everybody know um, my name's Alan Aguirre. Yeah, I got some stuff here. My name's Alan Aguirre. You're watching the Exodus to Ingathering week 37 devotional. If you're new here, because we're simulcasting to both YouTube and Facebook. This is our 37th week. We've been doing this 37 weeks in a row. We've built up quite the community. It's a discipleship program, actually. And you should ask the people that are in here on whether or not this thing works or not. It's awesome. If those of you that remember when we first started this thing, I was like, how are we going to transfer anointing? How are we going to transfer transference through this means, through this media? I was pretty concerned about that. Well, it's happening. It's happened and it's happening. So anyway, here's our social media stuff. If you want to check us out, we're available on all the various social media platforms. And this is what we got. This is what's happening right now. I'm really excited about this. I'll show them to you because look, in hand, we have the brand new 66-week calendar, monthly and weekly planner. It covers from January of 21, which is in a couple months or almost next month, through April of 2022, because this next coming biblical year, which starts in March, is going to be a leap year. So we're going to have Adar 2 in March. So Passover won't actually be until April. Yeah. So it's 66 week. We have all the projected new moons based on the conjunction on the fixed Jewish calendar. They're listed in there, which allows you to be able to know when you should be looking for the visible crescent. And then when you do find the visible crescent, you'll be able to write down. I should probably switch to the next mode, but I'll do that in a second. So anyway, we have those here. This is all available on the planetbluemedia.com website. We appreciate your support and the resource we make available to you. This is what we have. This is what God's doing. And if you want to email us about anything, there's the email link down below, info@E2iSeries.com. And on Tuesday morning, every Tuesday morning, for the last 2.5 years, I've been doing a live show on Messianic Lamb Radio Network. It's something like that. It's on YouTube, and we're also simulcasting it on the Chameleon Church Facebook page. And it started off as a 4-man roundtable on the Torah portion, and it's grown from there. It's become a whole different thing. And it's a whole different thing that's happened. Now it's me, a rabbi from Canada, and my old pastor from Los Angeles. He married my wife and I. He was my pastor from the 80s through the early 90s, for the most part, like 8 years. Lenny Prada, Lenny, wave your hand out there. He's actually a part of what we do here on Monday nights. So we do that on Tuesday morning at 7:45. 8:45 Central, 7:45 Mountain. We do that every Tuesday morning. We've been doing that for about 2.5 years. And right now you're watching the Exodus to Ingathering devotional. We've been doing this, like I said, Monday nights for about, 36 weeks now, because we're about to do the 37th week. So here, check this out. This is it's in my hand. We're shipping these out now. We just sent some to Europe to, where is he? Did he make it? Oh, there's Martin. He made it. Martin. We just shipped some of these out to Martin. These are amazing. I don't know. We learned a lot from last year. This is a smaller size. It's an A5 size. It's like 5.5, 8.5. And we got the tight wire bound, so it lays flat. We have a little introduction. You can put your name, information on there. And we have let me move my mouse. We have a little introduction on how to use it, how best to use it. Some we'll call them best practices. How it's laid out, why it's laid out, And you'll see here, this is the first week. It'll be the last week of December. You see the weekly view. Let me show you that. You see the weekly view here. Let me see if I can get a little closer. You'll see that. You'll see that there's a little space right there next to the Gregorian date, which allows you to put down the actual. Let me focus that camera. Actually, be able to put down the actual biblical date based on the new moon visible crescents. So you get a 2-page weekly view, and then you get the 2-page monthly view. And if you have the devotional journal calendar from last year, it's the same exact layout. It's just a little bit more compact. We made it a little bit easier and smaller. This is strictly just a calendar. Now, if you've done I'll call it the Messianic lifestyle. I don't like that term. But if you've been doing the feast cycle for any amount of time, you'll know that it's impossible to do without a calendar. That's why we provide this resource. This will have the projected, check this out. Look at what March looks like. It's crazy. The projected dates for the first biblical month of Abib, because that's when Passover starts and that's when the New Year starts. We've got the projected dates, and then from there you're able to actually figure out what is going on and how it coincides with the biblical calendar. How come I can't find this month here? Oh, we're all the way in April. Yeah, it's going to be in April. It's just a pretty interesting thing how you see all the projected dates. Let me find that for you. For some reason, I can't find the month date, the month page, and it's just going to be just like you saw on the other one, in the devotional journal calendar from last year. All the projected dates on one side, and then the actual space for you to mark. Here you go. So those are all the projected dates based on the fixed Jewish calendar and the new moon conjunction. Sorry, I can't get this to focus. Let me see if I can get my hand in there. There we go. Yeah, look at that tech. Sorry about that. But we've got the projected dates and you have the space to put them in. I'm really excited about this. So this is available now. It makes a great Hanukkah gift. And we have been talking about doing this. I know this is weird, right? We've been talking about doing this for a couple of years. This is a photograph I took in Jerusalem back in 2008. Old city of Jerusalem, the Roman corridor, and I waited 20 minutes for this photo so that Hollywood would be cleared. There's a young olive tree in that Roman corridor in Old Jerusalem. So we've made that available as a 16 by 20 poster. That's available as well. We've been talking about making that available for people for like 2 years. We finally did. So anyway, sorry if that was a little weird for anyone. I'm just excited about all this stuff. And hey, Doug, since you're here, do you mind praying for us? Awesome.
Hearts, our minds, our souls, our spirits with new insights to your word and your ways. Just ask too that you transfer Alan's excitement, because I know deep down we're all excited to be here with each other and with you, Father God. In your precious and holy name, amen.
I have a couple people suggesting they're having a hard time hearing. Are you guys able to hear all right? Yeah? And were you guys, and I know you guys were able to hear Doug, we've got a new virtual routing thing going on, and it should be working. I'm getting signal here, so hopefully, Christine, can you hear us now? Christine was saying she wasn't able to hear us. I'm not sure where she's at. Hopefully she's able to hear us now. Can you hear us now, Christine? Is that a yes? No? Yes, no? I don't know.
I think she was reconnecting.
Oh, okay. Can you hear us now, Christine? Yeah? Okay, so great. I just want to make sure everyone's hearing. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it very much. All right. Week 37. Going back to Bethel. 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 Is that a song? Going back to Cali, isn't it? Right. Genesis 35, 1b. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you. Bethel is located approximately 10 miles north of Jerusalem, between the territory of the tribe of Benjamin from the southern kingdom of Judah and that of the tribe of Ephraim from the northern kingdom of Israel. Let's look at that again. Bethel is located approximately 10 miles north of Jerusalem, between the territory of the tribe of Benjamin from the southern kingdom of Judah and that of the tribe of Ephraim from the northern kingdom of Israel. If you're new, we'll have to find where we unpack that. We've unpacked that quite a bit. King Jeroboam would erect one of his golden calf gods in Bethel and bring in his counterfeit priests to minister there. Bethel is where the man of God from Judah was sent to curse the altar of Bethel and prophesy 300 years into the future about King Josiah. That's got to be one of the most amazing stories. I break that story down in the This Thing is Spiritual book that I have, because it's talking about how prophetic art is, and you can't really talk about the propheticness of art without looking at the biblical narrative of prophecy. And one of the most amazing narratives in the biblical, one of the most amazing stories in the biblical narrative about that, in my opinion, is Jeroboam. Even just the prophecy that he was going to take over the kingdom, and the fact that here you have the son of David, right? One of the greatest prophets in the Old Testament. I think so, because he's a prophetic psalmist, right? That's why I think he's one of the greatest prophets. Well, plus he's also, the seed of Messiah comes from him. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so Jesus is known as son of David, so he's a pretty formative figure, I mean, as far as a prophet goes. But anyway, the son of this prophet, David, Solomon, hears about this guy named Jeroboam. He receives a prophecy that he will be given 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel to rule over. That didn't settle well with the king at the time, and so he goes after him, which causes this man to flee. And he leaves the land for quite a while, and then when he does come back, he's actually given 10 of the 12 tribes, Jeroboam. So anyway, he blows it. He does exactly what he's not supposed to do. He does exactly what God already warns him and all the other kings, mind you. He tells them the same. It's the same script every time. You're going to be king. This is what's expected of you and required of you. And if you obey, it's going to be awesome. If you don't obey, it's going to be bad. And Jeroboam blew it. To the extent, I mean, Jeroboam blows it so bad that a man of God, he's not even called a prophet, but a man of God is sent there to Bethel to prophesy against the altar and against Jeroboam. And he prophesies 300 years into the future about King Josiah. It's an intense, intense narrative. The sin of Jeroboam in Bethel, syncretism, the mixture of the holy and the profane, is completely against everything that God established as true and spiritual in regard to the worship of him. Hence the subject matter in that last book. And will plague every king and subject of the northern kingdom of Israel. Every single one. Every king of the northern kingdom was evil. And whether they were good or bad was determined on whether they observed the commandments or not, whether they observed Torah or not. And every one of those kings were evil. Not a single one was good. It's bad. Bethel, previously known as Luz, is first mentioned as the place where Abram stayed and built an altar en route to and from Egypt. It was the location where Abraham's grandson, Jacob, dreamt of a ladder being used as an angelic portal between heaven and earth. God, standing atop the ladder, promises the land of Canaan to Jacob and to make his descendants as numerous as the stars and sand as he did with his father and grandfather. Jacob awakens, erects the stone that he uses for a pillow as a pillar, anoints it with oil, and names the place BETH'EL, House of El, House of God. God instructs Jacob to return to Bethel in Genesis 35, where he is once again visited by God. This time, the covenantal promise is reaffirmed, and God changes Jacob's name to Israel. Bethel is where the warrior prophetess Deborah lived. Our oldest daughter is named Deborah. An important religious center at the time. Bethel is where the Ark of the Covenant would reside under the care of Phinehas. Remember Phinehas, grandson of Aaron? He's the one that ran the spear through the muppet of a man and his pagan Canaan wife. In the middle of the assembly, he comes up to, while there's people dying of a plague because they were worshiping Baal of Peor. So Phinehas followed him outside of the assembly, but that stopped the plague. Phinehas is very important to this narrative. Also, in 1 Samuel 10, the prophet and judge Samuel instructs the future King Saul to go to Bethel and visit the hill of God. When Saul arrives, he's met by a group of prophets and begins to prophesy with them. You should be gathering by now the prophetic importance or even the prophetic history, inheritance of this town, this city called Bethel, the house of God. It's a significantly prophetic geographical location. Bethel is also the place where some young lads mocked the prophet Elisha, saying, "Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head!" Elisha cursed them in Adonai's name, and 2 she-bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the young men. And I've always thought about that evening when the parents of these 42 young men sat down for dinner and their kids didn't show up. You've heard me say this before. You do not and you cannot raise a hand or a word. You can never come against God's anointed. Don't do that. The prophet Jeremiah writes of Bethel's idolatry as Israel's shame. The prophet Hosea prophesied of Bethel's wickedness. Hosea 13 alludes to Bethel's golden calf worship as graduating into full-blown Baal worship. But the people of Ephraim sinned by worshiping Baal and thus sealed their destruction. But wait a second. Didn't we just mention how prophetically significant this piece of territory or this place was? Yeah, we did. So how could a significantly prophetic place become so pagan, so antichrist? Well, let's start with having a leader that totally deviates from his anointed path, Jeroboam. Hosea had so much righteous indignation and contempt for Bethel that he called it BETH'EL, house of idols, at least 4 times. That's not good. Bethel is where God met Abram and Jacob. Bethel is where God affirmed, established, reaffirmed, and reestablished his covenant with man, giving it its namesake, BETH'EL, house of God. Bethel, the lost and demonic wasteland of pagan worship and idolatry. An old dear friend of mine publicly announced yesterday that he no longer serves God, no longer believes in God, is no longer affiliated with God. I've known this for years. God used me to actually warn him multiple times. We're talking about a city, a town where God was prophetically active, that became a lost and demonic wasteland of pagan worship and idolatry. How does that happen? I see it happen to humans all the time. And what I already knew for years about this individual became public yesterday. And a formidable figure in the Christian music industry, which is why it means something, because when leaders don't lead, they hurt. And I've intercepted some messages and some correspondence from people that are a little shell shocked by his coming out yesterday. Like I said, I've known for years. But it still weighs on me. Because we're not only talking, I'm talking about a personal friend, somebody that I've known for years that has flipped. We're talking about an entire town and the inhabitants of this entire town that went from being known as the house of God to a lost and demonic wasteland of pagan worship and idolatry. Be careful to guard, protect, cultivate, and nurture your Bethel. That pretty much brings us full circle, doesn't it? God said to Jacob, "Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So he does. See, here's the difference between my buddy from yesterday that I'm talking about and us. Jacob, he does. He does what God tells him to do. Jacob tells all his people to dispose of all the foreign gods, the idols of false gods, in their possession, purify themselves, and change their clothes, because they're going to go to Bethel, the home of the one true God, to honor him there. We see that Israel was instructed to do the same thing before they met, before God came down on Mount Sinai. Remember, Shavuot? They were given 3 days to purify themselves and to wash their clothes and to cleanse themselves. Jacob is instructing his people to do the same. Look at this. As they traveled to Bethel, it says that the terror of God fell on all the towns and cities that they traveled through, so that no one attacked them, chased them, or interrupted their journey. One of the ways we pray is we ask God to make us invisible to the evil one and the evil man. And if you know me personally and I ever prayed for you, there's more chance than not that I use those words. I ask the Father to make you invisible to the evil one and the evil man. They arrive at Bethel, and Rebekah's nurse, Deborah, dies. I make note of that because Deborah is buried under an oak tree just outside Bethel, and they called it Alon Bakuth. In Judges 4:5, it says that the warrior prophetess Deborah used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. Isn't that awesome? You've got a prophetess, a warrior, just kind of hanging out. And the people would come to her for counsel and judgment and correction and enlightenment. That's the way it's supposed to be done. Once again, God visits Jacob at Bethel. He changes his name from Jacob to Israel, which means God contends. To contend and to fight. Remember how Jacob wrestled with an angel? And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations," wow, "shall come from you, and kings shall come from your own body. The land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and I will give the land to your offspring after you." Jacob once again erects a pillar, pours out a drink offering on it, and anoints it with oil. I don't know why that chokes me up so much, but it does. He pours out a drink offering over the pillar and anoints it with oil. Bethel is where God met Abraham and Jacob. Bethel is where God affirmed, established, reaffirmed, and reestablished his covenant, giving it its namesake, Bethel, house of God. Bethel would become known for its pagan worship and idolatry, and would be lost and destroyed forever as a demonic wasteland. Be careful to guard, protect, cultivate, nurture, and cherish your Bethel, the Bethel in your heart, from the attacks from the enemy. I thought that warranted repeating. So, how do we then protect the house of God in our hearts? Oh, that they had such a mind as this always, to fear me and to keep all my commandments, that it might go well with them and with their descendants forever. You shall be careful, therefore, to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the way that the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live, and that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land that you shall possess. Be careful, stay vigilant, keep the commandments, don't deviate or turn. Walk in all the ways he instructed. Be the house of God. Man, that's some heavy stuff. I think that's some great instruction. That's some great foundational stuff, for us to walk in, for us to the key is to take these things and to make them ours, to apply them to our narrative, to our story, to our lifestyles, our families, our children. We want to raise up our children in these ways. Deuteronomy 6, you, your son, and your grandson. It's difficult for me to. This friend of mine failed. He failed as a leader in his home. He failed to lead his wife. He failed to lead his children. And now he's admitted not to, no longer being a part of the family. Again, I've known this, and I've known this for years. But now that it's public, it's impacting people, and I'm dealing, I'm having to deal with that. This whole thing here is about how we get from our Egypt, from the place where God met us and delivered us and brought us into salvation through Messiah, Jesus. How do you get from that point to our prophetic inheritance? I don't know, whatever you want to call it, heaven. Let's call it that, because most people know. How do we get from the day we got saved? Let's say this is the day we got saved, to the day we die and see him and go to heaven. How do we get from here to there? Because the majority of us aren't. They're just not. It's just not happening for them. They're not doing it. It's not happening for them. They're becoming distracted. They're becoming sidetracked. They're veering to the left or to the right. They're deviating. They're turning. They're walking away. There's a huge turning away. Jesus told us this was going to happen. How do you keep that from happening? Well, that's why I do what I do. That's why I write these resources. So I can hopefully help you understand that what you might not think is a thing is actually a thing. Attitudes, whatever. So that you don't deviate when a Korah rises up. You don't resort to fear, doubt, and unbelief when the giants manifest in your life. Because this stuff is really going to happen. All that ancient stuff is coming back. We've talked about that. You have to be firm. You have to be standing firm, unshaken. And if there's any hint, if you're tainted in any way, shape, or form, they'll know it. They'll smell it out, and that's what they're going to concentrate on, and that's what they're going to exploit, and that's what they're going to use to bring you down. I'm trying to show you the various ways you can be compromised in ways you didn't even know were compromised, so that what did Paul say? What's the premise of this book? That no matter what, you stand firm and you don't resort to what Israel did in the desert. Okay, we're in gallery mode. Sorry. We're in gallery mode. How are you? How the heck are you guys? How does this how did reading this impact you? How does this fit into your narrative?
Well, I'm going to jump in and just say that thankfully, Jason had pointed this out to me from our reading this past week in Hosea 13:6, where it says, "When I fed them, they were satisfied. They were satisfied and their heart was proud. Therefore, they forgot me." And I don't remember what version that you were reading out of, Jason, when you showed that to me, but it was like, God provides. He's such a great provider, and when he completely provides for us, that's when we become proud and forget God. So it's kind of like, I mean, I just been stuck on that for a couple of days now. It's just like, it's in our need. It's when we have crises. It's when, that's why the church is thriving in China, because of all the stuff going on there. And here we're just we have so much that we don't have the needs. And when you don't have the needs, then you get wrapped up in what's going on around you and not leaning on God. And so, our blessing has become our curse, huh?
Yeah. We allow our blessings to curse us.
Yeah. And that's one thing Jason and I were talking about, how important fasting is, and, some of the things that we are taught to do, and how important it is to hold to those, just from a matter of training ourselves. So that was just been stuck wallowing in that for a little while these last couple of days.
It's good to do that. It's like we always have to remember where we came from. I mean, I do it almost daily. I mean, I look around and I go, wow. Great example. Ready? Here's a great example. For some reason, I don't know why, my son got a bunch of Stouffer's lasagna. We don't eat that. We don't eat that stuff. But he did. He got a couple of Stouffer's lasagna, brought them home, baked them, and then we ate them for dinner. I don't know why he did, but he did. And I was eating the Stouffer's lasagna, and I told him, when your mom and I got married, we were gifted $1,000 to get married. That was going to cover our wedding and our honeymoon. And so we had Stouffer's lasagna at the reception. He's like, "No way." I'm like, "Yeah, it was, yeah." And but telling him that, and I'm sure I told him that before, but telling him that, I was able to go, "Wow, look at how far we've come." I don't forget. It's good to remember. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny, Lenny? I thought it was kind of funny. Who else? I think there's a lot here that we can discuss and share about if we allow ourselves to, be vulnerable and transparent. How are we making sure? How are we guaranteeing that we're not letting our house of God become a putrid, demonic
Well, I would say that not only was the instruction directly from God, what he commanded Jeroboam to do, ignored, but he also threw away history. Because what did Jacob tell his people to do before they went to Bethel? Get rid of all of their idols that they had amongst them. So this was the point of purification, away from all of that, the national historical baggage that had been brought in by the people who were a part of Jacob's extended family and the handmaids and all of those people. and he told them to get rid of the stuff. And it was a necessity before they approached Bethel.
Yeah.
And he held it in such high esteem. So we see another point where Jeroboam had history to point how he should behave towards Bethel, and yet he rejected it. And the idolatry that sits around us, that consumes our distractedness, is absolutely imperative that we purify that, get it out of our midst before, as a foundational to protect our Bethel, to protect that place where we dwell with him.
Yeah. The
I have a thought is it's interesting, like most humans, Jeroboam, when he went there and he brought in the idols, there was something in his heart that he knew that this is where the living God met Jacob. And yet he had to add something else. There always had to be something else rather than just the presence of God. And it's interesting because one of the 6 signs that Jesus, when he spoke, you see it in the Gospel of John, to the Sanhedrin, to the religious leaders of his time, one of the things that set him apart as a Messiah was that he would be the one that had the angels who would go up and down that ladder, not only Jacob's ladder, which we refer to it,
right.
but he says, I saw the angels ascend and descend. And when they saw that, they were enraged because that would identify him as the Messiah. But what he was bringing forth was the fact that he was in the midst of the presence of God. Jeroboam's idolatry, that he had to bring something extra rather than the presence of God himself and standing before the presence of God. And I can't quite put my hand on it yet, but it was like, remember last week, Mount Gerizim was the place where the woman says, this is where we worship. And he goes, no, it's in Jerusalem, where you're going to learn to worship the Father in spirit and truth. So when I look at this, it all seems to well up inside of me that after this time period, he revealed his Moedim, he revealed his feasts and his meeting times, his Sabbath. He knew we as human beings need to meet with him on a regular basis, but it wasn't to any specific place. You know, back to then when they had the temple, but the promise of just being able to go to meet with him and learn of his Holy Spirit, to learn of what it means to really commune and what proper worship is. That's something lifelong, and you can't attach it to a building. You can't attach it to a worship team or even a historical place. It's where Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you.
Well, it puts meat
Peace
on
and joy. So just something just started to grab my heart there.
Yeah. Well, that puts meat on the Christian doily one-liner of, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. It's not this. It's this.
Yeah.
Work out your own salvation in what? Fear and trembling. That's not a nicety. Fear and trembling is not a positive nicety. It's not no, man. It's fear and trembling. Paul says, man, you better make sure and qualify your salvation and make sure that it's secure. Paul says that. Put on the armor of light. I think we talk about that in a future devotional. I mean, it's not a passive thing. And the enemy is roaming, looking for who to devour. Rob, steal, kill, destroy. And I'm watching friends and family become robbed, killed, and destroyed. Over and over and over and over and over. Why? because they do not seek after their own salvation with fear and trembling. God said for you to seek out your salvation. God says for you to draw near to him. God says for you to resist the enemy. And when you don't do those three things, guess what happens? You become embittered, you become disgruntled, you fall away, and then you become the judge of us. If there's maybe one or two people in here that are watching or are going to watch that know who I'm talking about, what they've just done, and how I'm tied in. I'm not appreciating it. It's probably going to get a little weird, but hey, won't be my first rodeo. But that's how, you have to seek after your own salvation with fear and trembling. You have to. That's how you keep from becoming a statistic, man. The idea is for you not to become a statistic in this thing, Anyway, someone else. Come on, guys. I want to be blessed. Here, I'm not pressuring you to talk because for content. No, I want to be blessed by your testimonies. I know you guys have some great stuff. I know that God is doing stuff because we talk. Bless others and don't be afraid to share.
What I'd like to add is, for me, I know I'm kind of new to this group or whatever, but
who are you again? What's your name?
What's my name? I can't remember. That it's just like it ramps up more and more the deeper we get. We find out the less we know, and the more simple it gets. All at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
the more we need to become like children, we so easily overcomplicate everything. And for me, that's a real cycle that the deeper we get, the simpler it gets. The closer we get, the deeper, it just, I don't know, that just really hit me today with this one. It's just, I guess some people would say going higher and higher, more light, whatever. The more profound, the more open we are, the more profound it gets, the more simple it gets. We just spend our whole lives overcomplicating everything and trying to explain things, and it's just us getting in the way.
Yeah, further up and further in. I use that term. It's a C.S. Lewis term. We're supposed to go further up and further in, deeper, right? From glory to glory. It's just like it's a progressive thing, man. Yeah. So at the very end, be careful, stay vigilant, keep the commandments, don't deviate or turn, walk in all the ways he instructed. Be the house of God.
I think there was like a lot of things in this reading, but I think you hit it on the head. Bethel is so important. How did it get to be what it was? Is precisely because it was so important. We're coming into the season of Hanukkah, and in John they talk about the feast of dedication, rededication. I really like the military part of Hanukkah, but I've also really been tuning into more and more that the holiday is about the light did not go out. And that light had to burn to rededicate the altar, to bring the sacrifices. And how many times did the ark get carried off and the holy place and the Holy of Holies get desecrated? I think there's a whole element of spiritual warfare here that people miss. And I think for the believer, we don't understand. There's so much we don't understand from offerings on down.
Yeah.
But also what I've seen is bitterness gets in there. And it's devastating. It's worse than the most aggressive leukemia. spiritually. And I don't think the average believer understands how much of a defense of a wall, of a tower, gratitude and thanksgiving are. Because, like, I've said the same thing as Lenny has. Why isn't Yah enough?
Yeah.
You know, you see all these guys, and throughout the history of our people and in our own walks and everything, you know, why isn't Yah enough? That you got to add something. You know, and you think, why did they do that? Well, we do the same thing. Why? And I think as I've matured my prayer life, the supplication part of it, the petitioning, it's become an increasingly smaller percentage. Not because I'm trying to butter God up, but because I just find myself trying to grow and move in that attitude of gratitude, of being thankful, and of seeing His hand and His provision. I mean, I'm baffled at the miracle of manna, and yet they got to a point where they were sick and tired of it. And it's like, dude, it's the miracle food. I mean, and that's what happens to us, and that's what happens to a lot of these guys too. I guess they thought maybe they were going to be U2, or they were going to make piles of cash, or they were going to get a bunch of pats on the back. And that wasn't the path for whatever reason. And then they feel ripped off, and then it just cycles. And then you have a bunch of experience with, censor myself, with a bunch of jerks in the church, or ugly experiences. And yeah, I think it's so important for us, Exodus to Ingathering, that we keep our eyes on that gratitude, and that we learn contentment, because it's a major Achilles heel for us in battle otherwise. You know, and I think there's also something prophetic that went on here in the reading this Torah portion. I know Rico Cortez has talked a lot about it, and I don't remember all of it, but the splitting of the camp, there's something prophetic there. And splitting into two camps, and the 10 and the 2. And then you look, how was the 10 and 2 divided? You see it in the northern kingdom. The spies and the bad report, the split is 10 and 2, and there's a principle there spiritually that I don't totally have worked out.
Do you have anything
But it's
there?
the difference.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it's the difference between seeing God's hand and seeing your lack, or your perceived sense of lack, and it does you in every time.
Do you have anything there, Lenny, about that? What Tim's talking about? Or anyone? You're muted. Is that a no? No. I don't have anything about it. Isn't that awesome? I don't have all the answers.
So Chuck Pierce said the other day that the attitude of gratitude or thanksgiving unlocks the law of restoration. And I'm still trying to figure what that means, but
No, I get that. That I understand. Attitude and gratitude unlocks. Attitude, gratitude, thanksgiving unlocks restoration. Right? Because if a lot of times was he talking about bitterness or resentment or things of that nature relationally? Because a lot of times we will lose, we'll have lack because we don't have an attitude of gratitude or forgiveness or thankfulness with other people. I think we talked about that last week, didn't we? Or recently. If we hold on to resentment or bitterness, anger towards another human or towards whatever, usually towards another person, it will actually rob us of His blessing. right? It talks about how our if we're angry, he doesn't hear our prayers, or there's our inability to function with our fellow man, right? Love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. If we're unable to actually function in a godly way with our neighbor, with our fellow man, it will hinder our blessing. It will hinder our prayers. It actually becomes a stumbling block to us. Whereas if we are, like you said, attitude of gratitude and thankfulness, it gives a spirit of, what was the R word? Restoration?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Restoration.
Yeah, because restoration could be, restoration of relationship, restoration of finances, restoration of whatever. Yeah, no, that one I get. I understand that one. Did that help? Ryan, does that help you understand it better? Okay. That still doesn't address the 2 that he's talking about. So what are you doing, man? Oh, man. Who else? Who else can we hear from? Hellermans? Are you guys cooking in my daughter's kitchen? Where's my daughter? Where's my granddaughter? Where's my Hanukkah baby granddaughter?
We got a whole party going on.
You have a party going on there?
Well, here, have a look. See if I lose my internet.
Our criteria.
Oh my gosh, it's the woods!
Here,
Oh,
let me
so that's why
grab-
Spencer's not here in the devotional. He's over there partying with at my daughter's house. You're frozen over there, Alyssa. Anyway, that's my oldest daughter's house, Shondell. Deborah Shondell. Yeah, in Dallas. Lenny, Doug, Jason, all you people hiding without your videos on, Martin. I'm not trying to cause problems or anything like that. Anything you guys want to share about?
Gosh.
Oh, I was asking the room in general. You were cut out for a minute there, Alyssa.
Sorry, my internet has been really bad on this side of
Yeah. Don't worry about it. You're
the
good.
house.
I was trying to rack my brain on what he was talking about, what Tim was talking about, and I believe it had to do with covenant when they split. It all came down to covenant, that Jacob chose covenant, and that covenant was a submission and a fear of the Lord. You can go a lot of different ways with that, but Esau, no. He would have nothing of it. He really wouldn't, because he wanted to establish his own identity, and the 10 tribes wanted to establish their own identity. That's why they followed Jeroboam's idolatry and everything. And the one thing that Judah had going for it, the remnant, was always that they were a covenant people. That's as much as I could come up with.
Hey,
And in light of this, what we were talking about today, when he gave us his covenant, he gave us himself, and
it's a blood covenant.
that's something that we're always going to have to apprehend. Unfortunately, we made it into sticks and brick and mortar, and he never intended that to be. That's why the living God was so blessed being in a tent in the wilderness, traveling from place to place. I mean, yeah, the temple's marvelous, it's fantastic, but it's not him. I think we're going to find that out in 1,000 years. It's coming up really soon.
I see my daughter. Yeah, covenant, man. It's a blood covenant. He gave his life on our behalf. It's not a trivial thing, man. See, but if you don't have a revelation of the person of Jesus Christ in your life, none of this freaking matters. No one cares. They'll pick money, they'll pick sex, drugs, alcohol, ambition, pride of life, whatever. I literally know people that have chosen homelessness so they can be drug addicts, so they don't have to deal. I know people like that. In the same way, they've chosen whatever they've chosen in life over Messiah, because Messiah just didn't do it for me. Now, I know this isn't like McDonald's. It's not for everyone. What does it say? It says it in the New Testament. Not everyone is one of us. You're not all one of us. I know this. I know this to be true. Just because they say they're one of us doesn't actually mean they're one of us. And part of my job is exposing them and outing them. So that's what I deal with. On the one hand, I'm here to equip you. And on the other hand, I'm here to out the posers. It's always been like that. It's difficult. It sucks.
What is the wheat from the tares? They went out from us because they were not of us.
I brought up the wheat and tares. Oh, so my new segment. Did you guys know about my new segment? Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain, incorruptible 2-minute warning. And I did my first segment today. And I talked about wheat and tares. Hey. Jason, does that sound better this time?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It did much better. Yeah, I'm glad I realized it wasn't just like a side test that wasn't going to be published, because I about replied back blah blah blah. Didn't figure that'd be good on the real thing though. So.
Oh my gosh. Hey, thanks for the support there. Blah blah man.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Hey, don't love me so much.
I'll try stopping.
Where'd my buddy Martin go? Is he still around? No. Vern, how you doing? Ray? Jana? Mary? Anybody have anything else to share? No? Okay.
I will say this. I think it's very difficult for people to jump into the middle of this, especially during this stretch that we've been on. There's a lot of territory that's been covered that I think is instrumental to understanding where we're getting to. And maybe that speaks to the importance of having, getting it where the content of the previous weeks can be binged. Something, I don't know, to catch up or catch the highlights, because reading the book, it has been good, but it's the discussion that's been the difference maker for me.
Yeah. It's getting, I think we get a little bit more intense here where we're heading.
Yeah, well, it's not like we haven't hit some heavy topics, like getting banned off Facebook kind of topics.
So we're on there now. So
Yeah.
just throw money at it. No, unfortunately, I'm being asked if all the weeks are archived. No, they're supposed to be, but they're not. I'm behind. I'm like behind weeks and weeks and weeks, because it takes me almost an entire day to go through an actual session and edit it, clean it up, and then put it up. And I'm just one man. I'm so sorry. I'm but human.
Well, is there enough stuff that was that bad on those?
You know what I realized today? I'm doing I've got the recording studio I'm dealing with and learning that and figuring all that so we can make a new album. I've got all this I'm working and figuring out. I wish I could show you what this looks like. I mean, there's a lot going on here. We're working with 4 different platforms at the same time, software, we're trying to, I was calling it the tele-evangelist portion of the ministry. And it made me cringe every time, but I couldn't come up with a better. Then I realized, oh no, the live stream aspect. There we go. That's not so cringy.
Your hair is good, but it needs to be a little better. We're going for that.
When I get my plane, it'll all look right when I get my plane. The plane. So anyway, So it's the televangelist. No, not the televangelist. The live stream portion of this ministry. So we're trying to ramp that up. I really, really, well, one, I have a desire for it to be stellar, you know. And I really felt like I was supposed to take it more seriously than I was. So I'm like, okay, Father, because I mean, who thinks? I don't think like that. I'm not thinking that I'm supposed to take this seriously, or you know, that this is. But it is. This is really impacting people's lives, and I want to be a good steward of it. So I'm being really serious about it. So that meant throwing money into software and engagement and making it look better and all the stuff that we're working on. I mean, I can run multiple cameras and I haven't set them up yet because I'm still, you know, this is only week 2. Anyway, all that to say, and I'm supposed to be writing the next devotional. When am I going to do that? That way, when this is over with, what week do we go? Week 52, week 53.
Yeah. We really need to pray this production assistant into existence.
I know, right? Week 52. When we're done with this Yeshurun, week 52, I have to have the next one ready for you. I'm so alone.
Just do it in your spare time.
Yeah, right? My spare time is like from 2 and 6 in the morning, and I'm trying to sleep at that point. Anyway, I just want to be a really good steward of all of the pieces, and they're all pieces. It's not like they're not all important. This is very important. This is really, really, really important. The music thing, it's really, really important. The book thing, really, really important. And that's all I need to deal with. That's not including the speaking, public speaking, which is easy. That's easy because all of this is all that. So anyway. Yeah, Tim, what's wrong with you, man? Aren't you praying and fasting for that assistant? And I need him to be here because
I suck. The angel of Utah is restraining anybody with a brain from moving there.
Dude, you don't even know. So let me tell you a little story. About 5 years ago, I was driving up to. I was with a friend of mine, and we drove from here to the Pacific Northwest. And then I spoke or whatever, what I was doing. On the way back down, as we were coming through southern Idaho, the rental car radio blew up with all these Christian radio stations because there's a Tri-City area there. Remember that? Where Ted's from, Ryan. I'm looking at you, Ryan. Can you tell I'm looking at you? Anyway, Ted's from there. But anyway, my rental car radio blew up with all this Christian radio. And I was like,
good station, though.
Yeah, anyway, but this like righteous indignation welled up inside of me, man. I got pissed. And I'm like, yeah, you think you're so freaking cool with all your Christian ghetto radio stations and all your Christian whatever. Why don't you come down the road 2 more hours where I'm at? Where I'm at in Utah. Well, bring it down here. And God's like, they can't. And I'm like, right? So I'm being a mask hole in the car, righteous indignation, and then God speaks. So that's when you go, you know, bring it down a notch or 2 or 3 or 4. And God goes, they can't. And I'm like, what do you mean they can't? They go, they don't have the spiritual authority. I go, what do you mean they don't have the spiritual authority? And then he showed me this. The reason why there's such a concentration of Christians in southern Idaho, it's like a carpet up against the wall. And they've just bunched up. If you push a carpet up against the wall, it bunches up. He goes, that's the Christian scene in southern Idaho. They don't have the spiritual authority to cross the border into Utah. And I was like, well, what the hell? Why me then? What about me? They don't have the spiritual authority to come across the line. And I'm like, Father, I can't do this by myself. I seriously cannot do this by myself. I can't. Everybody that we came here with has left. Physically left. Everybody. Except for my immediate family. My wife's convinced we drove them away. I'm like, that's not true. That's literally not true. It's the weirdest thing. I don't understand it. It confuses me, but
I think it goes back even before the pioneers. I mean, obviously, the whole Brigham Young crowd, the whole, Mormon excursion, Moroni Trail, whatever, that they were led there, I believe, but not in a biblical way. I think there is definitely something territorial there that goes back before the white man, and you look at those petroglyphs and something, there is a center there, and I have felt it every time I've been in Utah.
dude, Steve Quill flat out said he has seen giants in animated states in Utah.
Sent to him by another country.
I know. I mean, if my revelation, the Lord downloaded this stuff, started downloading this stuff in 86. 7 years later, he reveals Utah to us. 18 years later, we finally move here, and here we are. If my being here is tied to that or connected to that, and it's impossible for me to think that it's not, considering that we're in such a hotbed for that, I don't understand what we're supposed to do or what it looks like. And I'm not worried about that. See, because as long as you do what God tells you to do, right? If you're constantly doing what God tells you to do, you'll end up being right where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. So I'm not worried about it at all. I just want to be a really good steward of these resources, the recording studio, the live stream, televangelist portion, and the book writing. I want to be a good steward of this in raising up, maturing, equipping, all that stuff. So that I can figure out what that piece looks like and how it connects, because I don't know. And it's exciting, but it's absolutely terrifying, because we're talking about, do you know what we're talking about? Do you have any idea what we're talking about?
You need Dutch and Chuck to come and go to headwaters and mountaintops in Utah and just start.
Last time I talked to Chuck about it was at Glory. It was at ICLV. We're sitting behind him. We're behind him like 2 rows, and I'm like, "Hey, Chuck," and you could see it in his eyes. He's like, "I know you, but I don't know you in this place." So he was scrambling in his mind to make the connection, and I'm like, "Dallas." He's like, "Oh yeah," So right, because he sees me in Dallas all the time. He knows I'm from Dallas. What am I doing in Vegas? So it was that. So I remind him. He goes, "Oh yeah." I go, "We're your only house of Zion in the state of Utah."
Let me remind you of a prophecy that Chuck Pierce gave in 1990, 1991. We just moved into the new building in Park City. We had Wesley Campbell. We had the gal, she passed on. She went to Kansas City. She did Master Potter. Oh, man, I can't remember her name. Incredibly prophetic, really big lady. She scared half the people away because she was so crazy prophetic, but she was incredible. And Chuck Pierce was there. And he said that revival would come through the East Gate, which I always saw right where you're at, Heber, the 30 miles from the Wyoming border. He goes into Utah. But, given the fact of what we understand in church culture today, that revival that's coming in is to release the knowledge of the holy for what's coming, and for the wisdom of what we know now, for God to unveil the secrets that are needed for his second coming. I mean, it's more than just church revival. But he said that back in 1990, 91 in our very building in Park City when he was there. Remember that? You weren't there, but I remember telling you.
Yeah, I know.
one thing I have to say is that the lack of other Christendom around you is allowing a certain level of purity in what you're doing. You're not getting intertwined with that other stuff, but you are able to approach what he is showing you and make it into the format it needs to be to get it into people, bring truth, to start opening those doors of the reality of what he is doing and has always intended his church to be.
And there's always that isolation period, right?
Well, I would say if it's not obvious, it should be that it's ordained. He brought you there, he stripped everything else away, and he's left you with just your people to start an amazing work.
Yeah,
Unless
Doug,
you're
I agree.
calling to
That's
let's
a
say
that's
you're
a
getting-
huge that's a pillar verse for the seven mountaintop revelation, the one you just shared, Isaiah 2:2.
Unless you're called there, you get beat up, spit out, thrown out. I've seen so many people that came and gotten thrown out.
And
You-
that's
you're
why we're so cautious on how and what we do, so that I'm an old punk rocker from LA. I'm not. I don't. Being a statistic isn't something I'm going to be. That's not going to come easy for me. Do you know what I'm saying? I will resist that. I will.
That's because you're called there.
Yeah.
I knew when my time was up. 28 years, man. I knew it. But my heart's still there, and there's that connection because of us. So
Right. So I just need prayer, fasting, prayer, link shields, link shields with us as we figure this out. But yeah, we just want to be really good stewards of what God has us doing. Here's the thing, it's obvious, well, right now it's obvious he doesn't have us doing a brick and mortar church fellowship here, but we are impacting more lives out here in the interweb, in cyberspace, than I would be,
It's because you're so far ahead of the curve. I mean, I'm really starting to understand this ecclesia stuff as governance.
Yeah.
And what you guys are doing and what you're going to be doing is a lot more in the vein of ecclesia than, the mom and pop church.
Yeah. I understand that, yeah. But I still need an assistant or two. Hey, those prophetic words are all fine and dandy, but I'm just messing with it. Cool. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Hey, did you have something, Alyssa? No? Hey, anybody have anything else before we wrap it up? No? I encourage you to grab a hold of these. They're going to come in handy for you in the coming year. We're doing a buy 4, get 1 free. And we're doing that through Hanukkah. This is what's on the table right now. This is a great way to support the ministry. It's a great resource for you and your family. And, come on, man. What grandma doesn't want that in their house, in their living room? This is a beautiful poster. We have these available as well. And they're not
The
not
only
pricey.
thing that would be better on that poster is an image of Jesus knocking on the door in the background.
What do you mean? He is.
Oh,
I'd like a smaller size of that poster for a small RV.
It's 16 by 20. It's pretty small. What are you saying? A postcard? Come on, Aspen, help me out here, man.
I'm ordering the shelves and whatever else today, Alan. But I tell you what, an RV doesn't have much walls.
Oh, I know. I've lived in a tour bus. I know. I've done an RV.
Oh, and like 5x7 or 7x10.
Yeah, you're talking about a good. Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Just saying.
Maybe I'll make just you one.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I can do that.
I was gonna say you could buy an extra copy of the book and
Well-
rip the cover off.
There you go. Yeah, frame the cover from the book. Probably be
get
cheaper
that.
than me printing a poster.
We're going to do that Giving Tuesday thing, or Giving, today.
Oh yeah. See, Aspen's reminding you guys of Giving Tuesday. There's various ways you can give. You all know where they are. I'm not going to repeat them because I don't want to sound like that guy. It's not for a plane or a car.
A production assistant.
There you go, production assistant. Minimum wage. What's minimum wage? $2? $2.50? $2.75? Ryan, when are you moving down here, bro?
I'll be that guy, Alan. I'll be that gal.
There you
ahead
go.
and, let's do the Giving Tuesday.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. Mary, you're awfully quiet. You're probably doing the stuff with your daughter, huh? Blessings on you guys. Hey, blessings, Ray, Vern, Jana, Mary, Aspen, Christina, Jason, and where's my romper room thing? And I see Ryan and Tim and Christine and Alyssa. There's Shondell. That's my daughter. I'm calling my daughter and she runs out of the frame. Why are you running out of the frame when I call you? Hi, baby. I can't hear you, but I can see you, baby. That's my daughter. How's it going?
Sorry, I had Bluetooth on. I didn't hear a word you were saying.
I said I love you. Joel! It's my son-in-law, the dancer. Spencer, my hunting friend. Look at you guys all partying out and stuff. Hey, blessings on all of you guys. Thank you, Father. Father, I pray blessing over everyone watching and everyone that's watching on YouTube and on Facebook and those that will watch this. I pray that you would protect them, keep them, again, invisible from the evil one and the evil man. Protect their finances and their health in this incredible, crazy, insane time that we're at, Father God. We pray for your grace and your mercy and your sovereignty over our nation. And like I mentioned earlier, Chameleon Church Show is tomorrow morning on the Messianic Lamb Radio Video Network Conglomeration thing, whatever it's called. You can watch it on the Chameleon Church page on Facebook, as well as on YouTube and on the Messianic Lamb Radio website. 8:45 Central. Lenny and I will be there. We'll be happy to talk to you and to trigger you and talk about things. Hey, how about that monolith? Did you see that? Southwestern Airlines won the internet today. They said, sorry, but we needed it back, and it's one of those things where you stand in line. Oh, man. It's awesome.
But a
It's like-
pillar was erected in its place. I thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
A pillar of rock.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it was replaced with a pillar of rock. It's pretty wild.
Media today.
Huh. Well, I mentioned it like 3 or 4 months ago. We should probably make a documentary of us traveling through Utah in a 4-wheel drive, going to all these locations where we know for a fact the giants have been. And what did Steve Quayle say? Not only did Steve Quayle say that he has seen them in stasis here in Utah, but that he has spoken with the native leaders, Native American First Nations leaders, that are still actively opening and closing portals.
Skywatch TV had like 6 episodes. It was Steve and I forget his producer's name, the video
Yeah.
producer's name.
Tim Alberni.
Yeah, there were 4 episodes with him, and then I think 2 or 3 with oh, come on, bro.
Tom Horn.
Tom Horn, thank you. So it was all 3 of them on, and of course, it's like a big commercial in some respects, but they're sharing some amazing facts.
It's called Cloud Eaters.
Yeah.
All right. And so episode 3 of that series talks about the giants, the Nephilim, and they show you the picture that I showed you guys of what we saw in the petroglyph that was absolutely a Nephilim. They show that too in their documentary. I'm like, see? And that's where we heard the information about the pillars, saying that they were the Canaanites that fled the killer, the marauder, the robber, Joshua of Nun. Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's nothing more exciting to me than when the secular world confirms and is a proof text to my biblical narrative. You know what I mean? So, if you're wondering why I would even bring that up and how that ties in with all this, well, if you read the account of Israel's exodus from Egypt to the Promised Land, exodus to ingathering, you'll see that one of the number one things that caused Israel's death in the desert, something Paul in 1 Corinthians 10 tells you not to be ignorant of as a Gentile New Testament believer. One of the things that caused Israel to die in the desert, what Paul wants you to understand so that you don't die in your desert either, but that you make it to your prophetic inheritance, is their fear of the reality and understanding that the Nephilim, the offspring of the Nephilim, the giants from Genesis 6, occupied their prophetic destiny. And they occupy yours as well. Whether you believe that, whether you understand that, whether you even agree, it doesn't matter. Because these same non-human entities that Ephesians 6 is talking to you about that you don't even understand as well, occupy your prophetic destiny, and you need to understand how to war with them in the Spirit. That's why Jesus came. To set all that straight, to set that aright. So, may the eyes of your understanding be opened. Thanks. Hey, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. My daughter. We appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow morning on the Chameleon Church Show. Until then, see you later. Ciao.